Hi everyone. I thought this week's topic was very interesting and most eye-opening for me was viewing Heidi and Nicole's videos prior to mine, mostly because I just had a very different response to the question. I happen to be privileged to work in a district where there is a lot of collaboration and doors are open as much as possible unless it's a safety concern. And I attribute that a lot to our turnover in administration the past couple of years. We have been lucky enough to have been working together towards a one-to-one Chromebook initiative, more technology integration, professional development that supports that, and a true personalized vision for student learning. And I think what has made teachers and students so successful and set them up for success is the fact that our professional development has been aligned to the vision of the district. So I'm going to be focusing on the questions, what are administrators looking for when they come into the classroom, what data is available to the students, the administrators, and the teachers, and lastly, is there a gap between what teachers do in the classroom behind closed doors, an announced observation and an unannounced observation. And so I'm going to start with the first question. My administrator and our supervisors in general are just looking for individualized student instruction. So if they were to walk in our classroom and see one student building a model out of clay, three other students sitting in a corner creating a musical that explains what they learned in science that day, a teacher sitting on the floor doing a one-on-one tutoring lesson with a student. And if we had the data and the analysis and the notes and the oral communication skills to back up why we're doing that, we would receive high marks and the observation would go just fine. The conversation would be rich and no one would be nervous or uncomfortable. The reason why we know this is our expectation is because we have a very clear rubric that states that. It's a district-wide rubric. The only thing that bothers some teachers, and if you were a fly in the wall in the faculty room, you would hear them talking about how although we individualize our instruction for our students, it doesn't seem that our observations are individualized to match our real talents. So in conversation with my principal, when I asked her why she looks for certain standards, she said because her boss told her that that is her goal this year, to evaluate teachers based on the goals of the district, which are blended learning, personalized instruction, technology integration, and project-based learning. So what happens is you don't get to have conversations that necessarily show you how you can be a better instructor yourself. And so I found a quote on page 16 that said, "In most cases, neither teachers nor students can articulate what they're supposed to be learning that day. They can describe only the activity or assignment, which is often chosen because it keeps kids occupied." So I believe that if I were to ask my principal, what are you looking for? I think she's looking for students to do just the opposite of that. And if a child can explain exactly what they're learning and why and where they plan to go tomorrow and what their goals are, and they can reflect and explain where they went wrong and how they're going to revise and correct something, I think that she would say the teacher nailed it. And so there is a lot of trust in our school. As I said, it's more of a doors open exchange of ideas, not very competitive. So our school is very aligned with what Linda Darling was talking about. As I was viewing the video that talked a lot about inquiry-based learning and project-based experiences, and not just covering content, but really digging deeper, I was wondering, what are our scores going to look like moving forward? Because each year we're adding more and more of this type of instruction. I also just read a book called The Smartest Kids in the World that also talked about Finland and a couple other countries and how they have come to rise to the top. So it actually got me pretty excited about the future of our district if we continue to personalize our learning in this way. In response to the question, what data is made available to teachers, students, and peers, I think too much data is made available. In fact, the needs assessment that we did last week really brought light to the fact that sometimes too much data is overwhelming and redundant. For example, we collect math data for benchmark scoring in our district, and these are K through 5, so young children, the oldest child being 10 or 11 years old. And within 1 week, multiple times a year, students are being asked to complete the same types of standard-based problems that are occupying multiple hours per day. You know, you can imagine what that would be per week, and it's pretty much the same thing but 3 different versions. So in addition to it being a money waster, it seems like too much data. And it's confusing to pick apart, and unfortunately we just don't have the time to do it. And so if they're not providing the time to do it, sometimes it's hard to find that time on your own. And so I think the same is true for students. We have so much technology in our school that everything's instant feedback. And so the second they take a quiz or a test or do any type of assignment, the quantitative data is popping up in their face, and I think unfortunately in an elementary school they're too little to do so much with it and to really kind of calibrate it in their minds and set realistic goals for tomorrow. And I think that's where the teacher comes in. And the parents, I think it really is the same problem with the digital report cards and the digital grades. Although teachers are spending tireless hours putting in comments and sending home remind text messages and making websites, I think there's too much to look and not enough development for the parents of how to get into these websites, especially being in a Title I district where many parents don't even have internet access in their own home or their own device besides their child's to get in. There just seems to be a big gap and buffer between what a parent in our district has access to and what we are trying to have them access. So it seems like we need to have some conversations about that moving forward so that parents can be on the same page and be able to, you know, get as much information about their child as possible without feeling so overwhelmed. And lastly, I don't think that there is anything different about what teachers do in my building between unannounced and announced observations. And I think that is because my principal and the supervisors have done their best to really build a school culture where there is a lot of trust. So I wanted to read a quote on page 27 that says, "We have to take responsibility for the message this lack of feedback sends to teachers, that teaching, the soul of their chosen profession, doesn't much matter." And I thought this quote was interesting because although I feel very supported in my school, I still want to feel individualized. And I wish that administrators had more time to come in, because although many teachers that are working in districts where doors are kind of shut would identify more collaboration being necessary, I think that even when collaboration is happening, administrators don't have enough time built into their schedule to be able to personalize their feedback the way they should. And I think that as Kim Darling, as Linda Darling also talked about, we don't just want better pay, we want to feel valued, and we want feedback, and we want to get better and really practice our craft and grow. So that quote really touched me, and I guess that's it. I'm looking forward to hearing what everyone else has to say. Take care.